Honestly, as a parent, there's nothing more stressful and worrisome than watching your child struggle to breathe, especially for our infants and little one. We constantly end up checking them to make sure that their little chest is still rising and falling and that they're breathing okay. Especially if your baby was born premature or had birth interventions like C-section, induction, and so forth, they're far more susceptible to respiratory challenges and respiratory distress, including infections like RSV. For so many parents, this worry is very real, and they feel like the only thing they can do is wait for trouble to brew and then throw medications and medical interventions at it. But what if we told you there was a way to significantly reduce your child's risk of RSV and respiratory infections and build up their immune system resilience and respiratory function? In this video, we'll dive deep into the science behind RSV, respiratory viruses, and the often overlooked factors that could be putting your child more at risk. And while this is not to say, oh, this is what you do in the crisis mode or intervention mode, because that is where medicine is at its best. But this video will say, how do we take proactive steps to help protect your little one, get their immune system, get their nervous system, get their respiratory system strong and developed and more resilient naturally? If that's the path you'd like to take for your little one, then dig into this video. All right, so first off, I got to just share from a parent perspective. My little guy, who's not little at all anymore, he's 15 with full lung function, so much so that he wins cross-country races, but not when he was little. Oliver was born about just short of 6 weeks early, so a little bit premature, and he was born with a condition as an infant called PPHN, persistent pulmonary breathing hypertension. And he had all sorts of hypoxic brain injuries, so low oxygen, brain injuries, seizures, and all of those things. So what we were told is that our dude Oliver would be sick his entire life. We were told that he was going to deal with RSV and croup and ear infections and bronchitis and asthma and allergies, and that his respiratory system would be compromised for his entire life. What we knew is that medically, after that rough start, after the compromised immune system and respiratory system he began life with, if we stayed in the traditional, conventional medical world only, that's what we would end up with. Because here's the deal. Drugs and medication can be and often are life-saving, but they're not life-restoring. They don't rebuild resilience. They don't rebuild health. And we actually know how to do that these days. So while medicine saved Oliver's life, and we're eternally grateful for that, it's the things I'll teach you in this video that rebuilt his immune system, rebuilt his nervous system and respiratory system, and got it stronger. Now, don't get me wrong. We faced things like croup and RSV and all sorts of respiratory challenges when he was little. And even though I knew the things I'm going to teach you in this video, it was still stressful to me every single time. It was still stressful to us and worrisome every single time. And we still thought, oh man, are we going to have to turn to medication again and again and again for Oliver? And we stood strong and we really doubled down and tripled down and 10x on these natural, proactive immune system building things that I'm going to teach you in this video, because we knew every time he would turn to medication, of course it would help him through that infection, through that incident or challenge, but it would make his system even weaker long term. So I want to share in this video, not just from a provider and a neuroscience perspective, which I love to do with my doctor job, but really share from a parent perspective as well, why it was so important for us to take this path for our son Oliver and not just accept, oh, here comes RSV, here comes croup, here comes asthma, but take a proactive and rebuild natural health approach first and foremost. And it worked. Our son got through all of those challenges as an infant, and now his respiratory system and his immune system are stronger than ever. Let me show you how. All right, first off, we need to kind of separate two things. The virus, when it comes to RSV and conditions like that, or whatever infection it may be, and then the child's immune system. And then we want to take that, the immune system, and we want to let you know this. The immune system doesn't function on its own. The respiratory system doesn't function on its own. It is controlled by the nervous system. And the nervous system, when stressed out, does two things. It causes rapid, shallow, limited breathing, and it suppresses the immune system, and it leaves it with more mucus, more congestion, and more inflammation. So when we look at kiddos who are more susceptible to RSV and respiratory infections, we have to say, what's going on with their immune system, what's going on with their respiratory system, and then say what's going on with their nervous system, and how do we get stress and tension and dysfunction off of their nervous system and restore, rebuild health there foundationally so that the other systems like the immune system and respiratory system get stronger, not weaker, as they grow older. This is not something that kids just simply grow out of. Now, obviously, our immune system, our respiratory system, our digestive system, every system of the body becomes so much more mature and developed and stronger later on in life on its own, but not if it's already dysfunctional and then ends up with tons of medications to suppress it further. So if your little one is going through these challenges on the regular, it's a very tough kind of fork in the road to say, if we know every time they're challenged, we're just going to throw medications on top of it. Well, the science is clear. You're going to end up with a kiddo who is chronically sick, dealing with autoimmune challenges. And in a different video, I could go even further into the connections to the brain and sensory and social and emotional and behavior challenges, ADHD, anxiety, autism, and so forth, because the nervous system, immune system, inflammation, all linked together. And if we don't get it stronger, it doesn't just compromise their immune system, it may compromise other systems as well. So what I want you to really know about is neuroimmune system dysregulation and dysfunction. Now, those are not necessarily real simple terms that just roll off the tongue, but what it means is this: when the immune system and respiratory system are out of whack, the nervous system is probably the underlying, almost kind of hidden in plain sight cause of that dysfunction. When a child is born premature or with a traumatic birth, like induction, C-section, forceps, vacuum, meconium aspiration, those are very stressful situations for the infant's nervous system. What that stress does, we call it the perfect storm, and especially with high stress pregnancies, premature, preeclampsia, hypertension, gestational diabetes, what we know is that those stress hormones, there's a connection from mom's stress, mom's anxiety, perhaps during pregnancy, that shifts that kiddo's nervous system into fight or flight. And then if they're born early, the number one thing we know is the nervous system is even more immature, and it's more stuck on this sympathetic fight or flight mode. So it's shifted into that by being born early. And then you're stuck in the NICU, and then you're stuck in the hospital, which is the most stressful, unhealthy place to be. So all of this adds up. And again, that's why we call it the perfect storm, because all of these factors early on for our little ones shifted their nervous system into this sympathetic storm. And the sympathetic storm causes rapid, shallow, limited breathing, an immune system dysregulation, dysfunction, and a pro-inflammatory situation for your child. So no wonder they're more susceptible to RSV and other respiratory infections. So what can be done about this? We have to address nervous system dysfunction and this sympathetic fight or flight storm head on. We have to find a way to naturally, without drugs and medication, release that tension from the child's nervous system and then restore and kind of reboot or rebuild their immune system and their respiratory system. And the number one thing that does that is probably not what you think of first when your kiddo is in respiratory distress and getting sick all the time as an infant or a toddler, but it's the one thing that has been an absolute game changer for so many families, and that is neurologically focused chiropractic care. Now, it's important to know this: that is not our care. Chiropractic care is not a treatment, and it is not a cure for RSV, for ear infections, for croup, for any condition whatsoever. We don't treat, we don't cure. We take care of the body naturally, or better said, neurologically. The adjustments we make for an infant and toddler are lighter and more gentle and more easygoing than what you would check the ripeness of an avocado or a tomato with. But because our infants' body, chest, neck, shoulders become so wound tight, become so what's called subluxated or stuck in that sympathetic response, that's the baby who's stiff all the time, colicky all the time, fussy all the time, struggling to breathe all the time. So all we do with our adjustments, very light, very gentle, very effectively, is we can get in there and we can release that stuck tension within their neck, their shoulders, their thorax, and the area where the lungs and the respiratory system and the immune system are really anchored into. And these adjustments release that tension and allow that child to breathe easier. The other thing our adjustments do is they stimulate or activate what's called the parasympathetic, which is the rest, relaxation, digestion, and immune system side of the nervous system. When we stimulate what's called the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system, we actually get an anti-inflammatory effect within the body, and it is more efficient in clearing congestion and clearing infections from the body as well. So as you can probably tell, I could go on and on about the nerdy, awesome neurological benefits to the whole body, respiratory system, immune system, digestive system from neurologically focused chiropractic care. But I wanted to just give you an introduction into why so many kids are susceptible to RSV and to other respiratory infections when they're born premature and with stressed out nervous systems, and then give you the one thing that is safe, natural, drug-free, and so helpful to help their little bodies work better from the inside out. We don't treat it, we don't cure it. We support your child to become stronger, more resilient, so they get through these not only better on their own, but they get ahead of them and deal with less of them down the road. It is a much more natural, proactive approach than just waiting for the bad news to come and throwing more medications at it. That is the standard medical approach, and that is why we have so many chronically sick kids in today's world. If your child's been through it, especially if a premature birth and they struggle with things like RSV and respiratory challenges all the time, consider adding neurologically focused chiropractic care to your team so you can take a proactive, resilience, immune system rebuilding approach to getting your child healthy again. If you need more information about how this works, more information about the science and the clinical action steps behind it, simply comment more below in the video, send us a DM, and we'll get you that information. God bless, be well. We'll see you on the next one.